So I'm going to try to be as professional as I can right now. Um, I didn't have plans of doing anything today. I didn't have plans of doing any sort of streams, didn't have any plans of talking about the Steelers. There wasn't much to talk about. And then I get the notification that Adam Schefter reports that the Steelers have released David DeCastro for seemingly no reason whatsoever, completely out of the blue. He's the best offensive lineman that they got by a mile. I don't understand why they would do this. It makes no sense, especially in a situation where Marquise Pouncey is gone, Matt Filer has left. Their other two best offensive linemen are already gone. DeCastro is by far the best lineman that they had on the roster. Former All-Pro guy, one of the best guards of the last 10 years. Still playing incredibly well. He did suffer, an injury at the beginning of last year. But what is the point of this? Unless there's some sort of big free agent that they plan on pursuing, and this is to free up cap space to afford said free agent, even then, David DeCastro is the last guy you cut right now. The last guy you cut. Because now look at what they have on the offensive line. What are they going to do? Yes, you drafted Najee Harris to get a better ground game. The problem last year was the offensive line, especially down the stretch. I don't care who you have in the backfield. If they got nobody blocking for them, what's that going to do? So now you're heavily relying on rookie Kendrick Green, who now might be moving to guard, and then might start BJ Finney at center. Because who are they going to put at guard? Are they going to move Kevin Dotson to that right side? Kevin Dotson's going to be fine. He's probably the best offensive lineman they got now. And he's only in his second year. We don't know what the status of the tackle situation is. It's more than likely going to be Zach Banner on the right side. No one knows what the left side's going to look like right now. If it's going to be a Okorafor, if it's going to be Dan Moore. And now absolutely no idea what's happening at the other guard spot. You drafted Najee Harris. You did the right thing because you still had David DeCastro, one of the best guards in the game. You drafted Kendrick Green. That was a good move. You needed to replace Marquise Pouncey. The interior was the only good part of this offensive line, and now it is in complete shambles. Because for some reason, they felt it necessary to release David DeCastro, one of the best offensive linemen of the past 10 years, who was still doing very good things. The best offensive lineman that they have, and now it's gone. And this is just another move and a series of stupid moves that the front office has made this offseason. Bringing back Juju Smith-Schuster, letting Vince Williams initially walk, letting go of Steven Nelson, and now releasing David DeCastro, on top of the fact that they couldn't bring back Bud Dupree as well because they couldn't afford him. This has been such a bad offseason for Pittsburgh. Such a bad offseason. And this is one of the this could be the exclamation point on it, because with Ben Roethlisberger coming back, the big thing for Pittsburgh last year was that they had a good enough offensive line for the vast majority of the season to protect him. He wouldn't have to, get hit, move around the offensive line, or move around in the pocket because the offensive line was going to be good enough to keep him clean. And now, I don't think we can say that. Pittsburgh has a very good collection of skill position guys, but if Ben's got zero time to get it to him, and if Najee Harris has no holes to run through, it's all for naught. It's all for naught. They did the right thing and drafted Najee Harris. They still had David DeCastro on the right side. They were going to put Kevin Dotson on the left side. Kendrick Green was going to be a solid center. The interior was going to be fine. They had some questions about Zach Banner. He won the job last year. They felt confident enough to put him there again this year. They were going to figure out the left side with Dan Moore and Chukwuma Okorafor. It seemed like the offense, it wasn't going to be as good as last year, especially with Pouncey being gone now, and with Matt Filer going to the Chargers. But it was still going to be formidable. And it was still going to be something that was still going to be a solid core offensive line in the league, still in the top half in terms of performance, opening up run lanes, keeping the quarterback safe. That right now is very much up in the air. And there's not an argument that you can really make where you can tell me that this is still a good offensive line. They have lost, I think, now all 5 guys that were starting on the offensive line last year. Marquise Pouncey is now gone. David DeCastro is now gone. In terms of Al Villanueva's gone. Matt Filer's gone. So at least 4 out of the 5 of the starters from last year are now gone. And that is the last thing you want when you've got a damn near 40-year-old quarterback. You can't really move anymore. And a run game that was atrocious last year. And you're going through with a completely young offensive line. And you get rid of one of the best guards in football when you need him most. This move makes absolutely 0 sense. I don't know why it's happening. And like I said, unless there's some sort of trade that they're going to be pulling off where they needed the cap space, or they're trying to bring in some big name free agent, that's the only thing that I could see being why they would release David DeCastro when they by no means had to do it. No way they had to do it. And even if they could have traded him for something, that would have been nice. If that's the case, if you're going to trade him, if for some reason you felt that you had to get rid of David DeCastro, why would you not trade him and at least get something in return? Why would you let him go for nothing? It makes no sense. And the offseason that this team has had has been brutal. For some reason, you let go of Steven Nelson, and then hours later, you bring back Juju Smith-Schuster. I get that his deal wasn't that big of a cap hit, but you let go of Steven Nelson when he was one of the best number 2 corners in football. Mike Hilton leaves. He was always going to leave because they like Cam Sutton. I understood that. But the fact that he goes to Cincinnati, all right, that's not good. Now you got the best nickel cornerback in football playing in the same division as you twice a year. And then the whole thing with Justin Lane getting arrested. You can't bring back Bud Dupree because he costs too much. The whole Tyson Alualu situation, yes, they got him back, but he was initially going to go back to Jacksonville. You let go of Vince Williams for whatever reason. You brought him back too, but there was no reason to let go of Vince Williams. This team now lacks any sort of offensive line veteran leadership. Because now, if I had to guess right now what the offensive line is going to look like week 1, I'm going to guess it's going to be a core 4 on the left, at the left tackle spot. Maybe Kendrick Green on the left side now, because they don't have anybody else to put there, unless they keep Kendrick Green at center and put BJ Finney at left guard. So there's going to be some sort of affiliation of Kendrick Green, BJ Finney, and Kevin Dotson on the interior of the line. However you want to put it, it's going to be either Green or Finney at center, and then Dotson will play whatever guard spot is open. And then more than likely Zach Banner on the right tackle. And no offense to any of those guys, none of them are David DeCastro. And look, Marquise Pouncey retiring, that's not necessarily something that the team did. I mean, Marquise, wish him all the best. It still hurts them, obviously. But the fact that they lost Matt Filer, Al Villanueva was falling apart at the end of the season, wasn't sad to see him go. Now he's in Baltimore. But Matt Filer was a big loss. They didn't bring him back for whatever reason. And the last thing that you want is Chukwuma Okorafor starting at the left tackle spot. I think Dan Moore will eventually take that, because Okorafor wasn't good last year. We don't know what Zach Banner's going to be. As much of a fan favorite as he is, we don't know. The only time that we've really seen him on the field a lot is as an eligible receiver when Doug Hodges was a starting quarterback in 2019. And he earned the starting job last year, and they felt confident giving it to him, and then he blows out his ACL week 1 against the Giants. So we don't know what we're going to get from Zach Banner as much as high hopes as maybe the fans and the team has, we don't know. So the last thing that if you're Pittsburgh, if you're a Steelers fan, the last thing that you wanted going into this year was the offensive line being a ginormous question mark, because that was the problem down the stretch last year. They couldn't block anybody to open up run lanes. Ben was under pressure a lot more. They were injured down the stretch. So if anybody goes down this year, God be with the Steelers offensive line. God be with Ben Roethlisberger and Najee Harris. Who the hell's going to protect him? And God help Pittsburgh if Ben Roethlisberger gets hurt again. And look, I get that we're hearing a lot of good things from Dwayne Haskins. Even if Ben does go down, it's still going to be Mason Rudolph coming in as the backup. He knows the system. He's been there longer. He's going to be the backup. Regardless of that, this is an already tumultuous offseason that was made better by the draft. They did a few things in the draft that made it better. I will say that. Getting Najee Harris was good. I would have liked to see them get an offensive lineman in the second round, but Pat Freiermuth fits that zone run type scheme that Matt Canada is going to enforce and work into the new scheme that Pittsburgh's going to run. But cutting David DeCastro when you definitely didn't have to, it makes no sense unless they have something in the works to trade for some sort of high-profile free agent, or to trade for somebody high-profile, or to sign a high-profile free agent. And even then, David DeCastro should be the last name on the list of anybody that should be cut. And if you're going to get rid of him, why would you not try to trade him and at least get something back? Because they definitely could have. They 100% could have. He's one of the best guards in football. They could have got something, not even just something, they could have got a good return for him. Whether it's draft picks, whether it's a solid depth player, a combination of both. It makes no sense to just simply cut David DeCastro. Absolutely no sense. And now the Steelers have maybe one of the worst offensive lines in football now on paper. I do not get it. Very much do not get it. So now, where does that leave Pittsburgh going forward? As of right now, like I said, this could be the only logical thing that makes sense, is that they're trying to get – I'm trying to think of all the free agents that are still available. Is Mitchell Schwartz still available? I'm trying to figure it out. NFL free agents right now, because if there's any sort of free agents that they could go after and that they want to bring in, I get it. But even then, why would they cut David DeCastro? There are a trillion guys I could think that you cut before David DeCastro. That for some reason, I don't get it. Unless they're trying to get a guy like Morgan Moses to put on one of the tackle spots. If they feel confident enough in having Finney as a guard, Dotson as a guard, Kendrick Green in the middle, they needed to free up cap space because they don't feel confident about either Okorafor, Dan Brown, or Zach Banner, and they want to make a run at Morgan Moses. I'd still be angry about it, but at least that would make some sort of logical sense. If that's the end game here and they get Morgan Moses, I can live with that. I'm still going to be pissed because you don't just cut David DeCastro. But at least that seems to have some sort of end game, some sort of narrative, some sort of plan to it. If Morgan Moses ends up being a Steeler, then great. You got a very good left tackle that you can plug in. Or right tackle, whatever side you want to put him on. Preferably the left side because, God almighty, their left tackle situation is awful. But in terms of other guys, yes, Mitchell Schwartz is still available. So, I'm looking at the rest of the offensive linemen that are available right now. Guys like Russell Okung are still available. Rick Wagner's still available. I mean, these are older guys, which is something that they need right now. They need a veteran presence on that offensive line. They don't have it right now. Aside from B.J. Finney, but by no means is he, some sort of highly touted commodity. This is what, his third stint with Pittsburgh? and he's always been a utility guy that they bring in when somebody gets hurt. It's not like he's ever been a staple of an offensive line. But I'm trying to look at, any other, free agent offensive lineman. Austin Reiter is still available. DeMar Dotson. Now we're kind of getting to the lower tiers, though. Because you don't cut David DeCastro to go sign DeMar Dotson. No disrespect to DeMar Dotson. That's not a move you make. So if Pittsburgh ends up with Morgan Moses and or Mitchell Schwartz, I can live with that. But it definitely speaks volumes that out of nowhere, they will be willing to cut one of the best guards in football right now. At a time where they need an offensive line. They need as much help on the offensive line as they can possibly get. And they cut their best offensive lineman after losing a longtime All-Pro center to retirement, a very good utility guy that they can use at right guard or right tackle in Matt Filer. Their left tackle leaves. It's not what you need. Not what you need at all. Now, 4 out of the 5 guys that started last year, I think all 5 of them are gone. I can't think of the other guys. I think it was Wisniewski, who they had for like 10 minutes until he went back to Kansas City, who they started on the at the left guard spot week 1 against the Giants. All 5 are no longer there. Your week 1 offensive line from 2020 is now gone. This is a fresh slate of offensive linemen for the Steelers. That is not what they need right now. Again, Marquise Pouncey retiring, didn't really have much control over that. I get it. But now, cutting David DeCastro, it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense at all. I'm sad. I'm angry more than anything right now. It just doesn't make sense. And like I said, if they end up with either Morgan Moses or Mitchell Schwartz, this makes the situation a lot better, because as big a question mark as the interior offensive line now is, the tackle situation is an even bigger worry. So if they do get Moses or Schwartz, and they had to cut David DeCastro to be able to do it, that's understandable. At the least, that's understandable. But if they don't get anybody off this, and they just did it to do it, that's a horrible move. Horrible move that makes no sense. So they better have something in mind right now, because, again, the offensive line, if I had to guess right now, it's going to be week 1, at least. Week 1, at this very moment, will be Okorafor. I'm going to guess B.J. Finney, Kendrick Green, Kevin Dotson, Zach Banner. That's going to be their offensive line week 1. That's not what I want. That's not what any Steeler fan should want. And again, as much of a fan favorite as Zach Banner is, we don't know how good he's going to be. I like Kevin Dotson. Kevin Dotson, I think, is the best offensive lineman that they have right now, and he's only in his second year and only started, 3 games last year when DeCastro was hurt, and he played great. He looked very good. I think without question you can say Kevin Dotson is the best offensive lineman on the Steelers roster right now. That's not what I want to say right now for a guy that's had 3 career starts. Not what you want to hear. Nonetheless, though, feel confident in him. I feel confident in Kendrick Green. B.J. Finney, not so confident in. Chukwuma Okorafor, definitely not confident in. Don't know what Dan Moore's going to be. He's more of a zone guy, fits Canada's scheme. We'll see. He could be the starter week 1. I don't know. But if he outperforms Okorafor in camp and he can do the things that Canada wants him to do, more than likely he's going to be the starter. But if they just cut David DeCastro for nothing and don't sign Morgan Moses or don't sign Mitchell Schwartz, this is a horrible move and an exclamation point on an already tumultuous offseason. So we'll see what happens. This isn't news I was expecting to have today. So it just doesn't make sense. Absolutely no sense. At least as of right now. It could end up making sense if they sign one of those 2 guys. But right now, I'm going to go through, I usually wait till around training camp But you know what? Maybe I'll just do 3 this year. I do the every game prediction for every team, release my predictions on the standings and whatnot, playoff teams, all that jazz. Yeah, right now it's not looking good. Not looking good for Pittsburgh. So, I'm going to sit on it because now I'm just angry. I'm going to be acting out of spite. I'm going to sit on it. We're going to wait about a week. We'll see what Pittsburgh does. If Morgan Moses and or Mitchell Schwartz end up being Steelers, I can live with it. I'm still going to be angry, but I can live with it. So, or Russell Okung for that matter. I know I mentioned his name. If he ends up being a Steeler, that's fine. That is fine. Would rather have Morgan Moses or Schwartz, but I'll settle for Russell Okung. That's fine. But regardless, they need to pick up somebody because this is ridiculous. This makes no sense. Drafting Najee Harris, Ben coming back only to not have anybody in front of them to generate any sort of offense. If they don't sign anybody, Pittsburgh isn't a playoff team. So, oh my goodness. Yeah, this is a pain, a very big pain in my side. So, stay up to date with me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL. I'm going to be tweeting about this constantly now until something happens, or even when something happens, we'll see. But yeah, this makes no sense. I'm angry. Why the Steelers would do this, I don't know. But yeah, I'll be following up on it as much as I can on Twitter, so stay tuned there at JBaileyNFL.